NYU professor Scott Galloway appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe. And I tell you, he had one of the best narratives on what's occurring right now with our economic system, with our oligarchy, with what capitalism is doing to the working class. Now, this guy is, Scott Galloway is a New York University professor. And again, based on the way he speaks and what he does, it's clear that he still believes in the capitalist system and the way it works, but he wants some framing to have better distribution of what the economic system creates. Unfortunately, what many like the professor and others who have been indoctrinated in the system fail to realize is the controls that they want to put on capitalism within our economic system makes it no longer capitalism. I believe strongly in democracy, and I believe strongly in free enterprise. The problem that we will never solve until we are honest about economic systems is that we have a predatory economic system, a system that by definition says your first goal is to reward, is to satisfy your shareholders. That is their ultimate goal. That is not what I am saying. That is what the God, or I should call him the new God of capitalism, says, which is Milton Friedman. Read his 1970-something paper. You can find it on Wikipedia. Capitalism doesn't care about environment. Capitalism doesn't care about any of these things. You have to write laws that allows the existence of humanity, the existence of caring for others, the existence of preventing monopolies, etc. Because by definition, if your sole goal of a particular company is to maximize the profits for a particular corporation, then by default, it turns not into competition, but into monopoly, because you would do at all costs what's necessary to maximize income. This is a reality that nobody wants to be honest about. And in effect, that's what we see in our economic system. The only answer is true free enterprise with a strong social safety net, with us taking all the essentials out of the for-profit systems, meaning life, for your life, your health care. That doesn't belong in the private system, just like firemen, policemen, police persons, none of that belongs in the private sector. We've got pieces of it done, but we need to finally rearrange our economy to have real free enterprise and to have people really asserting their worth and being paid their worth. The billionaires that we have out there are parasites taking advantage of you. Unfortunately, even Scott Galloway doesn't have the gumption to say it, but I want you to listen to what he said, starting with the capitulation of Mark Zuckerberg to Donald Trump by turning Facebook into a cesspool like Twitter. Listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
What is so shocking, I mean, just from a personal standpoint, what's the point of having all this money if you aren't at some point going to show some fidelity as a 40 or a 50-something-year-old man that has the wealth of the GDP of a Latin American nation to actually standing up and showing some fidelity to American values? Bezos has got the yacht. Tim Cook, Jensen Huang at NVIDIA is worth more than Intel or Boeing. At what point? When do the men show up here? When do the Americans show up here? Where are the men that have such blessings and such prosperity from the rule of law and capitalism and competition? And we don't need more mergers and acquisitions. We need more breakups. One company owns 2/3 of all social media globally. Meta. One company has 93% of all share of all search. Google. And if you don't think every day we don't pay higher prices, one company has 50% of all e-commerce. Amazon. The percentage of revenues that have gone to Amazon from third-party retailers has gone up from 24 to 50%. Look at the rents that parents are paying on Facebook when 24% of teen girls are now addicted to Facebook. 6% of our teenagers are clinically addicted to drugs and alcohol. 24% are addicted to Instagram. And the number of teen girls self-harming has doubled. So if you want higher rents as a consumer, as a retailer, and as a parent, that's where we're headed.
What does that say about where American capitalism is going over the next 5-10 years?
I think it comes down to a basic question. What is America? And my kind of economic role model is Peter Drucker. I think an economy in America exists to create a robust middle class. The most ascendant countries over the last 20 years have been China and India. And it's a one basic litmus test. How many people are you bringing into the middle class? The greatest innovation in history is not the iPhone or the semiconductor. It's the American middle class that beat back fascism in the middle of World War II, has financed and built the greatest innovations, whether it's radar, whether it's the internet, whether it's vaccines. The middle class in America is the greatest innovation in history. And people like to fall back into this right-wing notion that it's naturally self-healing. It's not. It's an accident in history. Typically throughout history, you have a small number of people who weaponize government. They're very talented. They aggregate power. They weaponize government, and they aggregate more and more spoils. And then the good news is it's self-correcting. This level of income inequality is usually self-correcting. The bad news is the means of self-correction are typically war, famine, or revolution. And if you want to talk about tax policy, the myth in tax policy is that the rich don't pay their taxes. That's just not true. The fulcrum is the following. There's super earners and super owners. The folks around your table are probably considered super earners. You make exceptional livings, but it's all current income reported on a W-2. And if you live in New Jersey or New York, you're probably paying 48 to 52% tax rates.
Right.
But if you're a super owner, I make my living starting and selling businesses. My last business, which was sold for $160 million, the first $10 million from my $160 million sale was tax-free. My effective tax rate over the last 10 years has been 17%. The average tax rate on the wealthiest 25 Americans is 6%. Corporate tax rates are at their lowest point since 1939. At the same time, taxes have gone up for the super owners. Now, the bottom 50% don't pay much federal income tax, but they pay a lot in usage and consumption taxes. But this misdirect talking about tax rates misses the point. It's the tax code, which has gone from 400 pages to 4,000. And that 3,600 pages, quite frankly, is there to screw the middle class and continue to transfer more money to the super wealthy. The fastest growing demographic group in America is not seniors. It's not Latins. It's billionaires. We had 500 billionaires 10 years ago. We now have 2,500. So if you want to cram more and more wealth into a smaller group of people, we're on our way. And the weird thing about America is that we support it because our superpower is our optimism. The Achilles heel is that 99%, the bottom 99% who are getting screwed, don't mind these policies because they believe at some point they're going to be in that 1%. But where are we? We're in a country that's had unprecedented prosperity that has not been evenly distributed. When 40% of U.S. households are struggling with some sort of medical or dental debt, when a quarter or 20% of households with kids are food insecure, and yet we have one man, Jensen Huang, who is now worth more than Boeing. I mean, something is wrong here. And just let me go to the psychology of happiness. You effectively, once you get above a certain level of wealth, you get no incremental happiness. So why on earth would you not go back to a tax policy of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where say above, pick a big number, 10 million, you actually pay more than 10%, maybe more than 20%, maybe more than 50%, because the difference between $30,000 a year for a household and $50,000 is enormous to the well-being of that household. Low-income kids in low-income households have higher resting blood pressure. But the difference between making 10 million a year and 15 million a year offers you no happiness. But these individuals have weaponized government, and we risk revolution, whether it's CEOs being murdered in the street, whether it's a Me Too movement that had righteous components of it, or Black Lives Matter. What are these movements? They are targeting the wealthy. We are in the midst of a series of small revolutions to correct income inequality. inequality. And the reason we put an insurrectionist and a rapist in office is because for the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. Why? Because the majority of households are having the oxygen sucked out of the room such that a small number of individuals and a small number of companies can be worth more than nation states. Income inequality is out of control. Our tax policy has gone full oligarch.
Galloway's correct. And one of the things that we are doing here at Politics Done Right and other people that are trying to make Americans aware of what's going on is, yes, we need to get the right people elected. We need to inform people in such a manner that they feel they have agency in getting folks elected and doing what they're supposed to do. Because otherwise, listen to the last sentence that he has. If we are unsuccessful in educating, having people vote their interests and not the lies of the Trumps, etc., they're just ripping them off. Once again, if we don't get the work done, he's right. What you saw Mangione do would simply be the tip of the iceberg. I hate to say that. It's not something any of us want, but when people are pushed against the wall and enough are pushed around against the wall, people will start reacting. Scott Galloway is absolutely correct.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.